Next, from Springfield, we attend a press conference in which Democrat State Senators Heather Staines and Toy Hutchinson call on the House to revisit SB 9, a budget bill which passed the Senate, and work to negotiate on certain measures so a revenue bill can pass. This runs about 20 minutes.
Senator from the 7th District, which is the northernmost part of the city of Chicago and a little bit of Evanston. Here today, there's been a lot of discussion about the budget proposal Rauner had put forth and the Republicans, and us taking that up as a compromise proposal. And what I wanted to do today, and with Senator Hutchinson, is point out, first and foremost, that the only comprehensive budget proposal that exists right now is something that the Senate has passed and is, it lies right now in the House of Representatives, and that's where the negotiations need to be taking place. What the Republicans have put forward is not balanced. It includes not a single revenue bill. It doesn't include any revenue, so it is in itself out of balance. It certainly spends at a level that presumes revenue, but they did not include any revenue bill in what they have put forth. So it's inherently out of balance. We're going to have Senator Hutchinson talk about that in more detail. The other point I wanted to make is that a lot of what they put in the spending bills themselves really had been reflecting a lot of compromise that we had been doing in the Senate. So the Senate, me as an appropriate chair and Toy as our revenue chair, as well as Senator Menard and Senator Trotter, had met numerous times with the Senate Republican point people on the budget negotiations. And we did come up very close to what is in the spending bills that the Republicans put forth. What I don't know that you and the public understand is that we put those exact bills, practically these exact bills, up on the board for a vote on May 17th, and we got 0 Republican votes. Practically exactly what was there, we got 0 Republican votes. So that's why we went to a different budget plan the following week that we could pass with just Democratic votes. And many of the other pieces of the compromise, big compromise package, we also had done with bipartisan support. Going into the local consolidation was bipartisan support. We've done the procurement reform that a lot of the budget relies on as bipartisan support. We had done pension reform that the budget relies on bipartisan support. All those pieces reside over in the House. Again, we believe that what needs to happen right now is the negotiations need to take place in the House. If the Senate Republicans are now coming back to the set of budgets that they themselves did not vote on May 17th, I think they should work with the House Republican colleagues and say, yes, this is something that we would like to support, and can you work to amend the bills that are over in the Senate? We will welcome them if they come back, if they are able to pass in the House with bipartisan support, we will welcome and take them up in the Senate. I'm going to ask Senator Hutchinson now to talk a little bit more about the lack of a revenue bill in their package.
Morning, everybody. I'm Toy Hutchinson, Senator of the 40th District, which is the southern part of Cook County, Kankakee, Will, and Grundy. I'm here really just to point out the fact that the hardest part of working on a budget is the revenue side, the hardest part. Almost everybody can come in and talk about how they want to spend money. But one of the reasons we find ourselves in this situation is because almost nobody wants to talk about where that money is going to come from. We filed Senate Bill 9 on January 11th, so it has been in the universe for months and months and months. Clearly it wasn't passed until May because we were really giving it as much possible time as we could to come to a bipartisan solution. So we stand here, both Senator Staines and I, our entire caucus, saying that we've kind of put everything we have on the line towards unity, towards compromise, towards we need to work on this together as in a bipartisan framework. That was the goal from January 11th through the entire session. The package of bills that have been released now notably don't have a revenue component, although it does assume the revenue pieces of Senate Bill 9. But Senate Bill 9 didn't get any votes in the Senate so that it could go over to the House. And if you remember, when I was standing up on the floor closing Senate Bill 9, I kept saying we cannot run down the clock. We cannot continue to run down the clock. That was on May 23rd. I asked, what are we supposed to do when we get downgraded? Again, what are we supposed to do when we end up in junk status? We cannot run down the clock to the point where the House doesn't have enough time in a bipartisan fashion to come together and actually put real substantive amendments on a package of bills that by all accounts are very, very close. So I am really looking forward to seeing what the revenue package is going to be, whether there'll be any amendments that'll be filed reflecting the changes that they'd like to see. And of course, and I'm actually saying, of course, we'll take that up. But right now, we don't have any amendments. We have no co-sponsors. We have no amendments filed on the most crucial piece of this budget package, which is the money. Now, I know the responses that I've gotten over the last 5.5, nearly 6 months, in some ways have been brutal. But so is the situation that the state is facing right now. It's brutal. And when we allow ourselves to be stuck into these separate corners as if everyone that's being affected by this or impacted by this aren't taxpayers, people who run their businesses and expect to be paid for their work are taxpayers. People who work in these social service agencies that are literally being decimated are taxpayers. People who run child care centers for whom we're still missing almost 50,000 kids, they're taxpayers. We are all in this together. It's going to take all of us together, and it cannot continue to be a situation where we're required to compromise on reforms, but it's just our tax increase. That is, if we're really going to be working in the spirit of unity and bipartisan cooperation so that we can end this once and for all, file the amendments, sign on as co-sponsors, get them back over on concurrence, and this could be over in a day.
The Republicans had a handout where they said that they would make some modifications to Senate Bill 9. A couple of, one of them was not retroactivity and 4-year income tax or 4-year property tax freeze. So how can you explain they don't have a revenue package given what they said in a press release yesterday?
What they said in a press release yesterday was that they assumed Senate Bill 9, which got no Republican votes. And I'm very interested, all of us are very interested in a bipartisan solution to this, which means we need to see amendments to Senate Bill 9 so that they can join, like if they say that they're going to support that, we'd like to see the amendments filed and the co-sponsorships to say, which would give us some indication as to whether or not they would vote for it. Right now, we have no amendments and we have no co-sponsors. We have an assumption of a bill that got absolutely no votes. That's not compromise.
Now, I've got one more question. If I'm a lawmaker, regardless of party and regardless of chamber, I might have a feeling the governor doesn't have my back. That, you know, I'm going to be in some stupid ad or whatever, and it's just going to be terrible. I mean, is that a valid thought? How much of that plays into this? Not only voting for a tax increase, but then having the governor, turn against me.
I don't really know exactly how to answer that, other than the fact that I think that most of our constituencies want us to do the best we can with the information we have as a situation that currently faces us. And there are a lot of things that happen politically that tend to impede on our work here in the dome, under the dome. And I would just say to most of my colleagues that this is a time for us to concentrate on what it is we were sent here to do. And every single day that goes by, if we're only making political calculations, that doesn't say very much for the people that we were sent here to serve.
Can I add to that?
Yep.
Oh, never mind.
With making the tax temporary and not making it retroactive, are those things that you would consider or be in favor of?
What I am most hopeful for is a bipartisan package that comes back to the Senate. There's no way in the world that if we get Republican votes and Democratic votes on a package to end this impasse, that the Senate would do anything less than take that up. We are in a moment in time right now, and June 30th is coming very, very quickly. But I felt that same urgency for May 31st.
And can I say, in all of our negotiations in the Senate, as when we were negotiating with Republicans and the Democrats, there was, I think it was practically non-existent, the things that we said are non-starters that we took off the table. We are open to anything that gets us to a bipartisan solution to end the impasse. We thought we were really close. We put things up on the board. In fact, we put this very similar budget to exactly what they proposed in this capital compromise up on the board and got 0 votes. We're hopeful now that they are, in fact, ready to start putting votes on an actual bipartisan solution. We think that needs to be happening in the House and come back. We had a lot of time in this chamber that we've been debating this. They have not had that chance to do it in the House. The House needs to start getting engaged and actually negotiating and sending something back to us.
Been engaged probably 8 times yesterday to the press. He said that, the past couple of weeks we've been working on this. Is there something else that, specifically to Speaker Madigan, you could say, and his leadership to get this going? I mean, you got the House offering up their plan, even saying about the revenue aspect of it. If we get substantive workers' comp reform and the property tax freeze that's meaningful, then we'll support revenue. Where's the Speaker on this?
I can't answer that. What we have done in the Senate is work extremely hard for nearly 6 months to try to get this to the point where, the goal, I remember when we had the first press conference and said we were going to list all these bills and we were going to get to work on negotiating these things. And so I want to remind people about how the legislative process actually works. The cleanest thing to happen would be to take the framework that is now out of the Senate, is in the House, amend those bills and send them back to the Senate. What we saw over the last couple of weeks was a rush to file a whole bunch of brand new bills, but absent the one that actually would make all of them go. So I think what we're standing here saying now is that we're standing here ready, we're willing, we desperately want this thing to be over. And we want to see that instead of having conversations about commercials and radio spots and campaign ads and newspaper articles, let's debate bills, amendments that actually make the changes that folks say they want to see so that it will garner their vote so we can actually take action. That's what we're here to talk about today.
President Clinton was basically right after the announcement of special session saying, quote, "We're not going to vote for anything." We've all alluding to that we've already done our work. How does this, I'm confused with, you're saying we're ready to compromise, but the Senate President said we're not.
No, I think those are entirely consistent. Yeah. The idea being that where you first, we can be happily involved in the discussions around compromise, but the votes at this point, we have a complete comprehensive set of bills sitting in the House where the votes first need to take place is there and come back to the House, and then we'll take that up. So very much open to compromise. The votes just need to happen in the House first, as we have already passed a complete comprehensive set of proposals on both the reforms, every single one of the reforms the governor says he wants, as well as the budget, as well as the revenue. We've passed all of them, and they are all residing in the House. That's where the votes now need to happen and come back to us, and we will happily take them up and do concurrence.
Are there actual conversations happening right now with Republicans, and what kind of negotiations are taking place in press conferences, side committees?
I mean, we continue to talk. That's always taking place. Where the negotiations need to be happening, and I hope and think that they are, trust that they are, is in the House right now. I think that's where you need to start seeing amendments getting filed in the House. That's going to absolutely take Republicans and Democrats coming together. As we're in overtime now, it takes 71 votes. They don't have just 71 in either party. It's going to have to take both Republicans and Democrats. I believe those conversations are happening in the House. I believe so.
We trust that they are happening right now. And we also want to be very clear about the fact that we send chambers, pieces of legislation go between the chambers all the time. There are plenty of times when people stand up and say, we're going to continue working on this working on this in the other chamber to get it where it needs to be before it gets to the governor's desk. We have never in the Senate said that our package was the end-all be-all, that it was never going to be changed. We said very clearly on all of these things, especially on May 23rd, we need to give the House time to work on this so that they can send it back. It is our absolute dream that they will get where they need to be at 71 votes with Democrats and Republicans, so that those no votes in the Senate are then turned to yes votes. Our Senate Republicans can then stand up for what their House colleagues did. We can do this on concurrence and get it to the governor's desk, thereby making a 100% bipartisan, fully negotiated package. That's the way this thing works. You don't file new bills at the end of session, there's a vehicle over there, actually not even the end of session, well past the deadline. There are vehicles that are waiting, that are primed to be taken up, that are reflect what almost everybody has said has gotten to very, very close points. They need to be amended and filed with co-sponsors and things that say, this is what we believe, this is how we know we're going to make it work, and this is how we're going to get the votes to do it. Right now, we have no amendments on Senate Bill 9. We have no standalone revenue bill to make the bills that they filed in the Senate anything. We need to work with the framework that we've sent over. They're happening. It's a two-chamber situation. It's a two-party situation. And the only way to work on this together is to get it done where it actually exists, in the chamber that it actually exists in. So we're waiting for that to come back to us. That does not mean we're not going to work on it. It means it comes back on concurrence, and we do the regular legislative process. We take those bills up on concurrence.
Mr. has set two public hearings on the committee of the whole today and tomorrow at 2 o'clock on a couple of key issues. Are these just a waste of time? I mean, should these not be happening, and should real work behind closed doors be happening on Senate Bill?
Well, that's a better question for folks in the House. I mean, certainly, I think people can chew gum and, and walk at the same time. These are all part of what I think we understand with the Republicans, that they need all parts of it. They don't want just budget bills. They also want reform. So I think by definition, you have to be talking about both those things at the same time.
Republicans yesterday, they gave themselves credit, of course, they gave your caucus credit, but they were very doubtful of the speaker. And the speaker, at the end of the session, all he said about your bills were to take them into thoughtful consideration. It doesn't sound like everything endorsement. So in your caucus, is the trust there for the speaker that he's not going to blow this up at the 11th hour for his political?
I think this, the state of what's happening in Illinois right now and the devastation that's going on, I believe that everyone has the goal of providing predictability, stability, financial security for everyone in the state. This is devastating. I think we've got to stop all the layoffs that are going off in the universities, all the kids who are no longer willing to look in Illinois, all the people who are moving out of the state, all the social service agencies that are shutting their doors, the schools that are not going to be open in time without a budget in the fall. I think everybody believes we need to bring this to an end. I really believe in good spirit. Everybody knows that we need to do that and is working towards that goal.
Any appetite at all for a standalone school funding bill? Is that a conversation that's happening?
We are, in the Senate, I think we've been incredibly consistent. We do not support doing a stopgap budget, period. And at this point, we have, I think it's 500 school superintendents from school districts around the state that have said even doing a stopgap is meaningless. There's no dollars there behind it. When we have a backlog of $15 billion in bills, even getting a stopgap doesn't mean there's any revenue to get out the door to the schools. That's the problem. That's what we see happening right now. They haven't been getting a lot of their payments that are already due to them right now because of the backlog and not having the revenue to support the spending level we're at. Stopgap just doesn't work. It's meaningless at this point in time.
Senator, you said it was time for this to end. I might say the time for this to end was 2014 or
I agree.
Some past time when allegedly we had a balanced budget. So, I mean, if you'd said we would go 2 years with no budget, I mean, you'd be going to use an indelicate term, the funny farm. But here we are. So I'm not really convinced that enough people really want a budget because we've gone 2 years. We're ready to go a third. I'm sure the governor is. I mean, why should we believe this?
We stand by the work that we've done in the Senate over the last 6 months. We are proud of the hundreds of hours we spent with our colleagues. When Heather and I first started having these bipartisan meetings, we started doing those about 2 years ago. And, there are people in this building, there are legislators in this building who believe wholeheartedly that there's nothing any of us can do alone, nothing. We as a General Assembly need to pass a budget, as a General Assembly, both chambers, and the governor needs to sign it. So we stand by what it is we've done. We stand by the work that we put into this. We appreciate anybody who wants to come in and help us get to the finish line. But we're here to say right now that a full budget package is not just where you want to spend the money. It's also the hard part, is where the money comes from. It's the one part that hardly anybody wants to talk about. But it's also the thing that makes this state run. So if we can do this in an open, transparent way, in a bipartisan way, we all stand ready to support that. And over the last 6 months, the Senate Democratic Caucus has proven that time and time again. And I would say we've proven that by the acknowledgement of the other side that said the package that they lit, it's very close. It is very close. So we can't let we can't let unnecessary things stand in the way of saving the state. The state, we can all do better than this.
It seems like one of the big things here is trading reforms for revenues. Republicans will get on board if they have in place. Before session ended, a couple of workers' comp bills went back and forth. One created a state-funded workers' comp company. Republicans said that's not reform. So ultimately, I think Republicans may be looking for substantive reforms first. I know you said you can do both things at the same time. But do you think that adds to the question of trust? They're looking for substantive reforms they can get behind before actually signing off to any tax increases or filing amendments to your bill.
See, the issue that we have, that we're facing right now, is that we have two parties with different ideological focuses, and that's just a given. That's why we're two different parties. So compromise means that everybody's not going to get everything they want. We're not going to get everything we want. They're not going to get everything they want. We have to do this together. So if the answer is always, that's not enough, we need more time, that's not enough, we are now at a point where we are one notch above junk status. So at some point, we're going to have to say, you know what, this is the best deal we can get, and we're going to live to fight another day, and you do that on the field. But under the dome, we are negotiating with people who don't agree with us. So, and it's not, and I'm going to say this, I've said this privately all over the place, and anytime I get a chance to talk about it, you can't have one set of folks say, our ideas are firmly held beliefs, yours, because you disagree, are corrupt per se. Everybody has their own firmly held beliefs. I'm a Democrat that believes in collective bargaining. I don't think that that's the scourge of the state. I know that there are people on the other side of the aisle who firmly disagree with me on that. Right now, we need to deal with the situation at hand, what we are dealing with today. And leadership is not about beating people over the head and making them follow you. It's about stating your case and making people want to go where you're going. And right now, we need all of us in on that play. All of us. Everybody on the field. All hands on deck. So everybody's not going to get what they want. That's the definition of divided government. That's just the definition of it. So at some point, enough is enough. Do the compromise, do the deal, let's get this done.